Here we're going to talk about what is a great process to work with your design and construction team to get a brilliant home with the least amount of stress and designing to budget as best as possible. So first of all, you think, well, I've got a home transformation project. I'm going to extend. Where do I start? How much does it cost? Do I need an architect? And you realize quickly that there's a design element and a construction element. And we tend to think that the design or the pre-construction element is much smaller than the construction side. And we're not sure whether we need an architect or a designer or a builder. And then we start to dig in and we find, okay, design and pre-construction has a lot of laws and regulations. It's going to take a lot longer than I originally thought. And I need to gather enough confidence about building my team before I even begin to do the design. So what originally seemed like a quick process starts to look very slow. So where does the planning come into it? First of all, we gather the information together. We design the project with our design team. We go into planning if it's required. There are building regulations and technical design that happen after that, and you seek party wall agreements and so on. And then you get to go on to construction. So it's starting to feel like a pretty good process, but wait a second, how do I know the design is going to be designed to cost, assuming that the architect or designer is very good at producing great designs to begin with? Okay, all right. So if this is the traditional route, this big pink triangle is pointing out the point where we learn about costs and where architects tend to learn about costs. So you do the survey, the design, the planning, the technical design at stage 4, and then we find out about costs. But surely that's not a great process. Surely we need to know about costs earlier. Let's have a look at what the traditional route looks like. So this is the good old traditional route, and RIBA stands for the Royal Institute of British Architects, and in fairness they do have a great plan of work system. It's just not tailored to the home improvement market. So I don't recommend this process, but I have used it for many years in the past before we started our construction company. So I don't blame architects or builders for following this. They do the measured survey, then the concept design, not really having an ability to design to budget. And they go into develop design. If you're lucky, if you're getting a good design, not one of these cheap design companies that does a one and done approach, but a good architect-led design process would do develop design, which is an iteration after the concept design, prepare the planning and submit that. Then after that comes back, 8 to 12 weeks later, hopefully, then there might be a period of nothing happening while the architect works out what to charge a fee for you and to get their resources together. Then go into stage 4 technical design. And it seems only then that you start to find builders and get prices. It's the only time that a builder can price, frankly. I've been there, and on both sides of the table. And then you get the prices back after a month, and then you have a total project rethink. Complete disaster becomes realized. But wait a second, that disaster began back at the very start. You only realized that the disaster happened once you get to the tenders. And the disaster is that you've probably picked a team who are going to take you down the traditional route that have all these trip hazards and fragmented issues. So there's no design to budget, there's no early detailed pricing, and no one's taking responsibility because the architect's going to come along and blame the builder, and the builder will blame the architect, and you'll be left holding the bill. Now, after all that comes back, you might have to repay the structural engineer, the architect, and some others for changing the design to suit the newly understood limits on the budget. You might finally pick a builder, sign a contract, and cross your fingers and hope to start the construction very soon. But I don't want to leave you with that. Let's talk about the solution. And anyone can do this integrated architect-led design and build process simply if they know how. There's no real reason other than a lack of creativity that every architect and building company doesn't do this. And the reason I say architect-led instead of builder-led design and build, or just the phrase design and build, is that the vast majority of design and build is builder-led. And unfortunately, that's an unregulated profession, and it's not systemized, it's not critical enough, and it doesn't follow the laws and regulations adequately enough. You do want a great design, you just want it to be on budget. So architect-led. This solution starts with a 3D laser scan, a high precision scan of your home. Then the early detailed pricing, the magic sauce, starts here. And we do a tender grade detailed pricing with placeholders and a lot of flexibility in how the scope is worked out. We might put in engineered oak timber floor at £50 a square meter, and so on and so on. And we try and look at all the costs together. Then we do a cost saving exercise. We call it value engineering. And then we move on to the feasibility study, not a concept design, but a feasibility study. Is the design feasible? Are the planning rules allowing that design to be feasible? Do the building regulations support this design? Now, we can do the early detailed pricing after the initial design or as the planning application has been submitted. It's really quite flexible. What's important for design to budget is that it happens at the very start or very close to the start. Then, as before, we submit planning, but this time, because we've signed a building contract locking in a start date to all build in the future, many months away, then we're able to do the technical design at the same time as the planning because our motivations are all aligned. And if planning comes with a hiccup, we're motivated to fix it and get it back in there without causing you any grief. In fact, maybe even without you even knowing, because we're all aligned to try and stick to that construction start date. Once that's all complete and we've picked the door handles and glazing and kitchen worktops and toilets and all the rest, we can refine and agree the price and start off-site prep, and then the construction is carried out just as planned, hopefully on budget and on time, but certainly with a much better chance of achieving both of those things. This process is the paradigm shift. Very simply, it's bringing meaningful detailed pricing to during design or even before significant design is carried out. And that allows for a massive reduction in waste, in a board of work, in unnecessary time and money spent on professional fees that weren't required. It improves your quality of life during the build and during the pre-construction phase. To recap, a home project, a home transformation project is not about rushing. It's not about getting the best magazine-friendly design done. It's about managing all these different aspects to make something that's feasible, that's controllable, that gives agency to use the homeowner and satisfaction to the whole team. I mean, at the end of the day, when you work with a great team, you want everyone to win. And that's exactly what this process allows. When design, cost, construction, when they all talk to each other early on, the project becomes a joy to carry out. It becomes faster just by the nature of doing things in the correct order and removing a board of work.